Hello, hello, hello. I'm talking, testing the sound. Testing sound now. Should be coming in a few moments. Let us know if we good. Say something, Mike.
Hey, let us know if everything's good.
Alrighty. And let me double check on my end that I say something again.
How's it going, everybody?
Cool. Alright. So I'm going to go ahead and open up a file. I haven't sent it to the other screen yet, so just hang tight, y'all. Can you hear my baby screaming in the background? Yeah! Yeah, he's so funny. He just screams instead of talking. Instead of saying no, he just like yells at everybody. Alright, looks like audio's good. Okay, so let me go ahead and minimize my OBS. I don't know how to get the chat, but that's why I'm relying on you to look at the chat. I don't know how to scroll over with the YouTubes. It's alright. Alright, let's switch over to the next screen. Hello, folks. Hope everybody is. Wait, please use a keyframe frequency for 4 seconds of 4 seconds or less. I don't know what that means. I gotta look into this. It keeps telling me this every time. So I'm just gonna print screen this so I can read this later. And then, yeah, every time I stream it tells me this error. So I'm print screening all these little errors for my own knowledge. Okay. But anyway, let me full screen this so I can see chat too. All right. Okay. Now let's actually get started. Yeah, this tells me I need to start like at least 5 minutes before, so we can start right at 11:30, 5 or 8 minutes before. But you live and you learn. Isn't that right, Michael? Oh my God, Michael just disappeared. Right when I needed him.
What? I'm right here.
All
Something
right.
happened?
None of your business, dude. Stay out of it.
I'm sorry.
All right. So we're gonna talk about some things as usual. So last stream we had a really great question that was asked about mental health, and I thought I would like kind of do this stream and talk a little bit about just like health in general and the value of health as an artist. I think a lot of times people don't necessarily correlate the two as often as they should. And then I think after I kind of get into that, we can start talking about other things, or basically answer some questions. Just start taking them right away, because I know we had a lot last time and I didn't get to most of them. So maybe we can try to get to a good amount this time. Plus, you guys asked a lot of great questions, so I'm going to try to make sure that I can answer them. With that being said, some house cleaning type stuff. One thing is that we're going to be in New York next week, December 12th to the 16th. I'll be there, and the event that we have, it's sold out, so you won't be able to necessarily attend, but we will have an after party. And at that after party, we will, I think it's really open to many people if they want to come join and hang out. But obviously, those who already got tickets are going to be able to go. But we also are thinking about hosting some sort of sketch group. So if you happen to be in the East Coast and you want to come join us, we're thinking about doing this on Friday, so a day before the event. So for those of you who are already going to the event and this is news to you, there you go. So try to free up your Friday. It might be towards the evening, so if you work or whatever, it might be an opportunity for you. Or if you need to get a day off or something, if you want to come hang out, that'd be something you might want to do. But ultimately, we are going to just try to hang out with people and just be at like some sort of plaza, some sort of area where we can eat freely and just hang out and talk to one another and all that fun stuff. But yeah, I wanted to kind of get that out there. And we are also looking to travel other places. It looks like there's a good following up in Germany and in London. So we're looking at some international places that we want to go to. But we also are planning to try to do something in Seattle area, right up in Washington. And this is going to be kind of our West Coast version. Obviously, I live in California, so I'm already always doing the West Coast thing. But this will be new for me because this is somewhere I'm not, I don't, I've never been. And so it'll be a great opportunity to go up there and talk to artists out there. And so we're going to begin putting out a mailing list for this pretty soon. So if you are out there, follow me on Instagram or follow the YouTube channel somehow, like subscribe, or just basically have access to me. If you follow me on Instagram, you will definitely know about it because I'll post it there. But if you are in Seattle or you're close to the Washington area and feel like you could attend this event, yeah, just keep your eyes peeled. Okay. And it's going to be the same premise. It's like this idea of we do, we get everybody to kind of pitch in to help bring artists out to you guys for a very affordable cost and host a party and have a venue, all that stuff with these costs, and hopefully get sponsors to help us out too, to spread them words. But with that being said, let's get started. So, health, okay? Well, a lot of times I think a lot of artists they don't take their health very seriously, or they'll say stuff like, "Oh, I should," like, "Oh, I definitely need to do it. I'll get to it," but they don't actually do anything. It's really important that you guys kind of start to face the reality that your body and your mind are one and the same. And what this means is that, like, if your body is unhealthy, like you don't eat the right nutrients, you don't move around a lot, it'll cause anxieties. It'll cause some sort of cloudiness of the mind. Like what's flowing through your blood is going to be flowing through your brain. And if you don't have proper sleep and rest, you don't eat and move like I was just suggesting, that kind of functionality of your body is not going to work at an optimal pace. I'm sure you've heard like people talk about how working out has really reinvigorated their energy or makes them feel a little bit more focused. It's just because it's true, because there's a lot of good science and research to demonstrate that human movement is a very valuable resource to our overall health. And as artists, especially what we do, like concept artists and illustrators, we are at a desk all day and we don't necessarily move or do anything. And so you're kind of challenging your brain to kind of pull its weight when it's not getting the proper nutrients. And it also you feel weird. You just feel kind of like you didn't do anything. And your brain feels this is true too. And so that's why if you go home from a long day of work, you still don't feel tired, right? Because technically you didn't really do anything. So your brain is just kind of like, I guess, like, you can just do stuff, let's like look online, let's watch Netflix for 17 hours. And so when you are actively making your body move and you're physically doing things to get yourself actually physically tired, your brain actually will take that as an opportunity, is that you definitely need some rest, and it will help you sleep better. And when you sleep better, you feel better. And when you feel better, you think clearly and you do things more clearly. And so this is why I encourage people to have a better diet and a better lifestyle as an artist. Otherwise, you'll end up a little bit more loopy than normal. You'll end up a little more, you'll just feel more cloudy. You'll feel low energy a lot of times. And think about it. If you have low energy and you have like cloudy thoughts, how are you going to be a good artist, right? Like if you have a lot of energy, you're going to be more likely to draw more often, right? Because you just feel like you can. You just like feel like you have time. You feel like you want to make things happen. If you eat right and you have like a lack of a cloudy mind, then when you're designing for clients and when you're working with clients, you have less anxieties. Or when you're building a portfolio, you'll start thinking clearly about like what you can potentially do, or at least have the opportunity to start thinking clearly. But most of us just don't do this. So what's my advice? How do we get out of this funk? Like, let's say you're in this situation and you agree with everything that I'm saying to you, right? And you want to kind of start making some of those changes as I've just suggested. So the first thing that you would need to do is just move more. So if you're at your desk right now, like just make some sort of like rule of like, okay, I'm gonna do, like 50 squats, and then I'm gonna do like 30 push-ups, and maybe like 50, like 25 crunches and 25 leg lifts or something, right? As just like a 15-20 minute workout, and then you don't have to do it all at once. You could just do a little by little, like just be like, all right, I'm going to start sketching. I'm going to do my sketch. And after 30 minutes, I'm going to do one of these workouts, whether it's the push-ups, whether it's the squats, right? It's something that most of you guys kind of already know how to do. If you can't do push-ups, if you can't do squats, if you can't do any of these things, then do some sort of secondary version of it. For instance, like a push-up on your knees, that's easier to do. Or at an incline, or I'm sorry, decline. I forget which is right, but basically you put your hands on something, like you elevate your upper torso versus elevating your lower torso, like putting your feet on something. So you're like, for instance, like a kitchen counter, you can put your hands there and do push-ups there if you don't have push-up strength, but like you find where you're at physically, and then you just kind of like do something. And then maybe after you do that, like you do another workout, another 30 minutes after that, right? And another 30 minutes later, you do another workout, So like your normal 3 to 4 hours of working or drawing, whatever you're doing, you're like working out in between, creating some sort of habit of just like moving your body, And when you start to do that, you'll start to feel like, oh yeah, this is totally achievable. I can totally do this more and more. And then what you start to do is that you start to elevate what those workouts will be. Maybe you'll do more push-ups. Maybe you'll start to remove the decline and start to incline. Maybe you'll do push-up variations or variations of squats and things to make it a little bit harder. Whatever that is, you just start doing that. Now, let's say you don't necessarily or you're not necessarily interested in, let's say, getting stronger. You just want to feel healthier in general in terms of exercise. Then you don't necessarily have to do that. You can just go walk. Walking is also very healthy, right? Like just say, okay, in about an hour, I'm going to go walk for like an hour, or half an hour. And just get up and literally just walk. But my point ultimately is you guys got to move your body. You got to do something that's a little bit more active, And when you start to do these things, you'll start to feel more motivated, right? And your motivation will never always be at like a 10, but you'll start to feel better. You'll just start to feel like you can do stuff. And that's ultimately what I want you guys to get at, because when you start to feel like you could do stuff, then you'll do stuff. But if you live this lifestyle where you're not going out often, you're not getting up often, you're not moving around often, you're basically are training your body that you're not an active person and you don't need to do active things. And your body wants to be efficient at the common things that you're doing often. So if you're often not doing anything, then your body is going to get real efficient at doing nothing. So it feels like kind of like this perpetual problem of like the more lazy you become, or the more lazy or the more like inactivity that you do, the more your body like prefers it, But if you start to be more active, your body will start to prefer it, and then it will just start to pay out in dividends later in your life. Because even though it can give you more focus and you can feel better and all that stuff, it also just will bring longevity to you. You'll just be a healthier person, and that's just always good. And you'll just have a better feeling overall, and that's always good. Now, for me, what do I do specifically when it comes to physical activity? I just work out. I just go to the gym, lift heavy weights, and do walks. And then in terms of like cardio or any kind of body like anaerobic workout, I usually just play with my kids or do stuff like this. They can get me going, and it's a lot more fun, and it's more enjoyable. And so whatever that might be for you, you just need to figure that out and just start doing that as well. Okay. And so like for me, like I said, just go lift weights. I just go to the gym. But even when I first started, I would just start really small. I didn't do anything crazy. And now, now I just do it pretty regularly. You know, it's all about just sustaining. It's all about continuing doing the same thing. Now, when it comes to diet, I recommend that you just pay attention to how many calories you're intaking and the kind of calories you're taking in. So if you are someone who eats a lot of fast food or eats out a lot, you're eating quite a lot of calories, and you're also ingesting pretty terrible calories, like calories that are not necessarily nutritious. You'll feel full for a second, but then you'll feel hungry again, and it's usually your body saying like, I don't feel like we ate anything of value today, and so let's try again, and it never goes away. Like your body will never really adapt to this lifestyle. In fact, it will just feel like you're never really eating food. And so I highly encourage you just start to eat more good foods. And most people understand what this is, like vegetables, fruits, stuff like this. And what's really important to recognize is that the human brain is fueled by, carbohydrates. Like it prefers glucose. It's like its primary source of fuel. So you need to eat like carbs, right? And to really kind of help your brain function even more optimally. And regardless of what you may have heard online, like it really is about getting a good intake of carbohydrates. But it's not about just eating whatever, right? Like, okay, well, I'm going to eat these candy bars or drink these energy drinks because those are definitely loaded in carbohydrates because they're just like added sugars. But what it is like you want to like eat like foods that have good amounts of carbohydrates, but they're good for you. Like, vegetables, like fruits, these things. And I usually recommend this because it helps, again, with the clarity of your mind. Your brain feels like it's getting all of its ammunition. And if you're eating like whole foods, like if you're eating like potatoes, beans, lentils, if you're eating like spinach, kale, these types of things, then you're going to feel a lot better in general, And I highly recommend you do this. At least start eating more of this stuff in your diet. I specifically am a vegan. I don't really eat any meat of any kind. So pretty much my diet is like 100%, mostly carbohydrates, right? Where I usually get my fats from are from things like avocados, nuts, seeds, these things, because they have tons of fat in them and they're really good for you. But I generally recommend eating a balanced diet, whatever that looks like to you. Not necessarily going to force one way or another. I just know that these are the things that are generally true and real, regardless of whatever you read or heard online. The scientific evidence is pretty much unanimous, at least in the nutritional world. And I'm not talking about like YouTubers. I'm talking about like the actual people who've done tremendous amounts of research. Like the metadata leads into this. What this also means is that if you eat too much saturated fat and too much cholesterol, it will clog your arteries. This will also lead into stuff like carpal tunnel, like for us artists, like clogged like vessels in our wrists and everywhere else, And so this is really important to kind of recognize. Okay? And so that's it for that. I don't want to get too much into that because that can be a whole lecture of just like a whole video of cooking and making foods for you. But like I just wanted to kind of like generalize this so that you guys can start to think about it and say, you know what, AJ's right. Like I should just move more. I should eat better foods. What can you do when you're out and about? Like, well, one thing I can say about that is like just be more proactive about the kinds of foods. Like fight against your own temptations. And I know you guys know what I mean. Like when you're out and like you shouldn't have got that triple decker bacon cheeseburger or whatever, but you got it anyway. Like you just maybe not get it. Like get something else, or just be a little bit more proactively thinking about this stuff. But anyway, that's it for that. I just wanted to talk a little bit about that because I think it's something that artists don't talk enough about. We talk about how to draw well, how the industry is and all this kind of fun stuff. But like ultimately, you guys need to be healthy. Anyway, Mike, you still there?
Yep.
Yep. All right. Let's take some questions then. Let's do it.
All right.
While you're saying stuff, I'm going to be drinking water. So ignore my slurps.
Dylan Farrow Whitney asks, hey, I had a question come up this week before I forget. Does anyone have any recommendations or advice regarding professional development as an artist?
Yeah, so like what advice to give to somebody that's trying to become pro?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So to become pro, like my advice usually is to just have it's really obvious advice. It's just have pro artwork. And what this means is just like go on like ArtStation or any kind of really good website that demonstrates a lot of quality artists, and then just look at what they're doing and what you're not doing. And if you want to like be more like focused, then just focus on like the kind of artwork that you would like to do. So for instance, let's say you want to work at Pixar, then you should find other artists who either work at Pixar or do artwork that you think would get a job at Pixar. And then start asking yourself what you don't have that they have. So for instance, do you have like this artist has a lot of environments and is a really good environment painter and has a lot of beautiful colors in their environments and lighting. Do you have that? And do you want to be that? Or like, let's say you're looking at a character artist. Do they have or do you have all the characteristics that that person has? Like a good sense of perspective, forms, anatomy, you know? And then you just kind of move from there, right? You just kind of just say, okay, what did this person have that I don't? And then just try to have it. And that then leads to other kinds of questions that are a little bit more focused, because that question tends to be a little too general. But when you start to actually begin the journey, you'll start to ask more focused questions about like, well, how do I get better at anatomy? How do I get better at this? But this idea of like how to become professional, like it's a little, it's not too hard of a question to answer, because the answer is actually pretty obvious in most cases. Like there's very rare cases where you definitely need like some sort of like different circumstance or understanding of something. But like how to just be professional in general, like I'm alluding to, is like you can actually just look online. It's already a lot of good evidence on what you should be doing or what you should be trying to do. So hopefully that helps you out.
Dylan clarified, he had said how to present yourself to employers, how to craft a targeted portfolio, etc. I feel like this is usually overlooked.
Yeah, I think I still answer that.
Okay.
And then like, because like the targeted portfolio, like it's not as like, there's no kind of strategy is what I'm trying to get at. That's like not obvious, right? There's nothing that you're missing. I'm thinking if you just thought about it, like you're probably right. You know, for instance, like if you wanted to work at Pixar and you had like my kind of portfolio work, like the kind of like the stuff you're seeing right now, like this kind of weird rabbit monster demon thingy, I'm not going to get a job there, right? And you know that. Like you don't necessarily have to know more about the hiring practices at Pixar to know that I myself, Mr. Anthony Jones, cannot work for Pixar with the kind of portfolio that I have currently. So then ask yourself that question of why is that? Like what are they looking for then? And you just got to look at their movies. You got to look at the people that they hire, you know, and you'll get a good sense of that, right? I feel like a lot of like that question is just too general is what I'm getting at, right? Like how do I have a professional thing? It's not that people overlook it. It's just that it's very obvious, you know. It's pretty obvious. It's just you would think that there's some sort of secret, but here's the problem with this type of thinking, because if you believe that there's some sort of extra thing that you're not getting, you might be actually avoiding the real problem, which is that your portfolio is just not good enough, right? Because if your portfolio is really good and you know who you are and you know what you want to do, people could see that in your work. If you don't know and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to just try to do this one thing to make my portfolio stand out. I'm trying to say, like, to make your portfolio stand out, you got to be good. Like, that's the thing that makes it stand out. You know, like nothing else, like nothing like, oh, this person, like, you know, they use a really good border on all their portfolio pieces. It's super cool. You know, it's really creative. It's like, but the artwork is like mediocre. That's not what you want. You want to have good artwork with a good impression. Um, but in terms of how to be professional, like how to carry yourself as a professional, this is a little bit more. Uh, this has a little bit of a better answer, which is that you can essentially just think of it as like always trying to make friends. Don't necessarily think of like, how do I, you know, leverage this conversation, or how do I get this person's information so that way I can like ask for a job later. Just always think like, how do I vibe with this person? Oh, I vibe with this person a lot, and maybe we can be buds, right? Like you just genuinely appreciate them and their company, and so it's more natural interaction. I find that whenever people start to kind of like treat people like objects, like, oh, I need to like network with this person because of like their job, you know, or their status of where they work, you know, like people could feel that type of stuff, you know what I mean? And so I always say like, to be more professional, you just try to be friendly, just try to make friends. And the more you do that, the more you'll have friends, and the more friends you have, the more opportunities you have. It's just kind of how it works out. Yeah, but I like to think like, don't get distracted with like whether you're doing it right, like that kind of stuff. Like, oh, am I like, how do I have more portfolio professional stuff? Like, what's the specific thing that's missing that's not making my work professional? You know, you can actually just look for yourself. It's not too crazy to do that. Like, just go online and look at some of these badasses, and you'll get a real sense.
He said that really helps. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um,
You just don't want to, like I said, you just don't want to like think that there's some sort of secret. Okay. It is as obvious as you like think that it is, and that ultimately means that the reason why you ask these questions is because you ultimately are trying to uh, indirectly avoid the reality that you just need to be a better artist. And it's really simple, this path to success. It's just nobody wants to see it as simple.
Sweet Ox says, I'm from Pixar and I want to hire you.
uh, I don't know if that's true. That person's probably lying. If you do work at Pixar, I actually know some people who work at Pixar who are good friends of mine, um, and they're good peeps. And I would love to work at Pixar. If this is true, then reach out. I don't know what I'll do. I could draw marketing stuff, maybe. Like Monsters Inc. Revisited. It was just like real monsters.
Okay. Hassan Raza asks, I'm confident in drawing slash sketching, but the painting always very difficult for me. Can you give some tips, guidance to improve?
So say that again. He's really good at sketching and
He
drawing.
says he's confident in drawing and sketching, but
Yeah.
painting is very difficult. Can you give some tips on improving on that?
Yeah, I need him to clarify something before I can answer this. Does he mean like he feels confident with just drawing like rough ideas, or can he like draw like really fully realized ideas, but he just can't paint fully realized ideas? Answer this question the best you can based off of what I just said. We'll just move on to a different question and then just try to like flag that response.
Yeah, I'll be watching. Okay. Taha asks, when can we expect the one-on-one mentorship announcement?
It's actually already available. Just email at robotpencil.info@gmail, and then Mike will send you a direct link to help you
Yep.
schedule that. We sent it to a few people already, but nobody has booked it yet. And I want to kind of test it with a few people versus like a lot. Like I don't want to like full on do it yet because it's a little bit of a different format that I might not be prepared for. But there's only one way to find out. Like try it out. I have some solutions. where it will just be like 1 day mentorship type things. It will still be like the mentorship type system, but it'll be much cheaper and there will be more people and it'll be more like lightning round paint overs. It still wouldn't be as powerful as like a one-on-one or the general mentorship, but it might be like a good middle solution to having like a taste of the mentorship without spending too much money. It's more like you pay for like a seat, and then as a collective, you guys help each other get like a 1 day mentorship. But I want to just see how the one-on-ones go because I prefer if I can just get like one-on-ones. I don't want to like streamline critiques, but that might be an option.
All right. Pencil Boy asks, can you draw like Kim Jong-ji? I mean, with lines only without sketches?
Wait, what?
Can you draw like Kim Jong-ji with lines without sketching?
Oh, yeah, I can, but I can't do it as good as he can. Like he has a much larger visual library. Now, if I were to stick to my subjects that I usually draw, I could probably do pretty good, like monsters and robots. But as soon as I deviate from any of that, like there's no way I can be as skilled as he is. And most of it is because I just don't know what a lot of things look like. And so, in terms of like training, I don't have like that library built up. But no, I cannot. Is probably the short answer. He's really skilled. He's trained for many years to do this very thing. And so for me to be able to do that, it would take probably. I would say that it won't take me as long as maybe someone who's just starting out. Like maybe if I really focused on it, which I have been slightly, but if I really focused on it for like a good 2-3 years, and that means like spend like 2-3 hours every day like learning how to draw more things and build a larger foundation of skill, I could probably do it pretty effectively. But I'll probably do it differently. I'll probably do it through painting instead of sketching, because he's already kind of has that wheelhouse. I don't really necessarily want to like just be a knockoff of him, because he's really good and there's no real need for us to have another one of him. you know but it would be cool to have like a version that like can paint like that, like paint like from scratch and really quickly. And I'm already pretty close to that.
Oscar asks how to effectively gain more followers in social media.
Yeah, so this is another one of those easy solutions that you might already know, but you just don't implement it, or you just don't have patience. So the solution to this is ultimately the same principled idea of like just you just do it. So for instance, if you start an Instagram, you should post every other day, if not every day, on there. If you have a art station, you should post at least once or twice a week a really good portfolio piece. Or if you can, like me, post every day or every other day. But the point is that it's just consistency. It's not necessarily the quality. A lot of people focus a lot on quality, like they need their work to be really qualitatively good before anyone will take it seriously. But the reality is, it doesn't have to be. You build an audience regardless, and if you build an audience through just posting often, you'll have an audience that's pretty faithful to your content, right? You don't have to worry about like what you're posting. You just post, and most of your fans will really appreciate it because they like the constant flow of inspiration or ideation. Now, obviously, if you're really bad, you're probably not going to get a lot of followers right away. But why I suggest posting often anyway is because you're also just teaching yourself self-accountability and consistency. You're teaching yourself that habit. Even if it's like with trash artwork, you're still teaching yourself that you should just be posting. And so when you do that, you are doing a couple things. One, you're building that habit that I just mentioned, but you're also like teaching, you're just getting better, right? Because you're just drawing more often. And because you're drawing more often, you're getting better more often. And when you're getting better more often, your posts will be better. And at some point, maybe after like a few thousand posts or something, especially if you're starting really, really low, you will be really good and you'll have a lot of artwork to be posting. And every time you draw something or do something, it will be good and people will be excited to see it in a grand scheme. Again, obviously, if you start off already pretty good, then yeah, it's gonna be easier. But it won't happen overnight. Still, there are some really good artists that are really good, and they just started like their Instagrams or just started their Facebook or whatever the heck they did, and they post like a good barrage of great images, but then they don't get millions and millions of followers or anything crazy, and then they just feel like, oh, something's wrong like with this, and it's just it's a little arrogant to kind of just assume that this is going to happen. And I'm not trying to knock that arrogance. I'm just saying that's just how it is. Like, you shouldn't, like, that arrogance drives that philosophy, and I've had that happen to me as well. Like, I think this way as well, at least in the past. But because of how things rolled out, I was immediately humbled by this reality that it's not as simple as being good and just posting a couple times. It really is like that constant flow that really built my audiences. And I always tell people, like, go to my Instagram and try to find the bottom. Like, to find like the very first images that I posted, and it takes a while. And it demonstrates that I post quite a lot of artwork. Same thing with ArtStation. If you go there, like, try to get to the bottom, and you'll see that I post a lot of artwork. And so like, with taking those facts in, people then will look at their own social media and just realize that they don't post nearly as often as they should. And even if they do, maybe the content that they're posting isn't relative to their artwork, so that's why nobody really cares. Like, they're posting like their food and stuff, and their cat. Like, don't worry, like, people like to see that kind of stuff, but it's not a way to build your following consistently, especially for the field that you want to get that following for. But yeah, if you're not posting, then yeah, don't expect people to just all of a sudden follow you because of the merits of your work. I mean, if you've ever paid attention to the social media, like, stratosphere and how it works, like a political figure like our president in America will say something really crazy and controversial, and then literally within hours people will forget. And this is true for like good news too. Like, people will find out like something really awesome, and then the next day they forget. So it's not like it's just like that attention span is just not there. But if you're posting like every day, you're constantly reminding people every day, eventually you're going to get that follow. Eventually you're going to get that like, especially if you do something that's really cool.
All right. Hassan Raza responds and saying, yes, I can draw completed artwork with a sense of light and form, but it's kind of difficult for me to paint.
Okay. So, so then it's just a matter of tools. The reason why I was making sure, because when someone says that they can sketch really good, I want to make sure that they mean like a finished drawing, like it looks done, like it's not like a sketch. It's like, it actually looks like a fully rendered image, but they just do it with pencil instead of painting with digitally. And it's important to differentiate this, because if you say that you can sketch really good, there's this problem that may happen that is actually has nothing to do with the painting. It's more that you just don't actually know how to like draw. And every time you sketch, it's just an illusion. It just makes it feel like you know what you're doing. And then when you actually have to reveal what you know what you're doing, it becomes revealed then. This is easier for me to review or give some sort of feedback if I see someone's artwork. When they say, oh yeah, I know how to finish a painting. Because people will say they do, but then when you look at it, it's like clearly they don't. But I don't know, so I'm just going to assume you do. So if that's the case, then it's just a tool problem. That just means that you just need to do it more often. You need to understand how to do it now via painting. Because I can make the same claim, but in reverse, for digital to traditional. Like, I can paint this, what you're seeing right now, like really well using Photoshop, right? But it would be much more challenging with colored pencils. But it wouldn't be a matter of I don't know how to finish a painting. It's more like I don't know how to use colored pencils to finish a painting. And if I wanted to solve this problem, I would just keep using colored pencils. I'll try to understand that medium. you know? So it's more of like a tool problem rather than like some sort of process. But it's really important that you learn or you make sure that it's a tool problem, because if you lie to yourself again and you're saying, no, it's definitely a tool problem, and then you keep adjusting to the tool and you just never can make your images look good, that lying to yourself is because it's not recognizing the fundamental problem that you actually just don't know how to draw well, and you never had to really be challenged in this way. Um, and so that's ultimately why it's like a crap show, you know. But it's important to distinguish that sooner than later, because it's easy to tell me, oh yeah, I know how to do it, I know how to do it, and then when you go to do it, you're like, oh, why doesn't it work? Like that's just you lying to yourself. You don't know how to do it, you know. And so just be open with that idea, and then when you realize that's true, man, you improve so much faster. And the reason why, like I said, it's easier for me to do when I review somebody's artwork is because it is, because like I can see what they'll tell me what they're saying. Like they'll, oh yeah, I can totally render stuff. I can totally do it for sure. Like I already know how to paint forms, or I already know how to do this. They'll say all the things that they say they know how to do. Like, oh, I already studied anatomy. Anatomy is not the problem. But then I'm looking at their drawing and I'm like they don't know their anatomy. Like I can actively see that they have no clue at all how to solidify their anatomy in any capacity. And I'm just like, no, you definitely just don't know how to draw your characters well. You just don't know. And they're like, no, it's not that. It's something else. It's something else. And I'm like, no, it's definitely this. And you're just being incredibly resistant to feedback, which is normal. Most people are, right? But you have to also recognize some of the best artists aren't. Best like illustrators and concept artists in the industry are the kind of people who are not. They are much easier to talk to, and they get better much faster usually. So hopefully that answers your question.
Okay. Snowfold asks, any tips for expanding your visual library? It's insane how you can just magic spell something into existence, and it's obvious from a huge visual library built up over time. It's obviously from.
Yeah. So the way you do it is just by like, and I mentioned this a little bit earlier about like the Kim Jong Ji answer, right? Which was that like I just need to draw more things to have his visual library, right? Like he knows how to draw a motorcycle inside and out. I don't, you know. But why? Why is that? Because I've never really practiced drawing motorcycles, and so when you increase your visual library, that's pretty much what you're doing. You're just increasing more shorthands to draw specific things. So, for instance, if I really wanted to get good at drawing motorcycles, I just need to draw more. And I did, and I just kind of stopped. I don't know why. Maybe just because I just procrastinated. But like I was, and after like a week of drawing motorcycles, I felt like I had a better understanding. It was nowhere near like expert level motorcycle drawing, but it was just like better, you know, obviously. And if I would have kept it up to this day, which was probably like a month ago or a month and a half ago, I have no doubt I'll be a pretty moderately good motorcycle artist now. I can draw motorcycles, right? But because I didn't, my library is still just very basic. You know, it's very stereotypical. It's very standard, very expected. And to break from that, you need to draw it so many times to that point where you just kind of know what a motorcycle looks like, and so you can kind of invent it every time you draw one in the future. But that's how you build a library, both for shapes and ideas and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. Jeffrey Pyatt asks,
Okay.
this looks awesome. Is it an OC, or am I just bad at recognizing this character?
OC? Original character? Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Do you know, or are you just guessing too?
Okay, boomer.
That's funny. Did you see that Yoda meme with the okay boomer?
Yeah.
That made me laugh so hard, dude. I love how that's like a new like a new insult. Oh man, that's good.
It's actually an old one that just got popular.
Was it? How old was it?
I've heard okay boomer for like 3 years.
What? I've heard people call people
because the boomers figured it out. and they're upset.
Who are the boomers? Who are these people? Just old people?
I think it might be your dad's generation.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, boomer.
Okay, boomer.
Yeah, the Yoda one is funny because it's just like old Papa Yoda, just like talking about like do or do not. There is no try, and then it shows baby Yoda say boomer. Okay, and it just like makes me laugh because it's like in Yoda speak. Such a good layered joke, man. Good meme has layers to it. I forgot where we're at.
Is it? It's an original character.
Yeah, it is
just
original
drawing.
character. Yeah, I'm just drawing. Yeah. If I'm not doing an original character, I'll be very explicit pretty early on. But I almost always draw original characters on my streams, personal work. There's rarely when I just do just like fan art or whatever. It's my job to make original things, so I practice it all the time.
All right, good answer.
You're a good answer.
You're a good answer.
Okay, boomer.
I'm actually younger than you.
Okay, boomer. Just keep saying that.
Just like to anybody.
Yeah.
You said it to your like children.
I'm gonna start saying it to my kids.
You have actual children.
It's just funny, dude. Yeah.
Dan Robnett asks, when will your ArtStation learning tutorial be done?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was supposed to have it done months ago, but I just kept on getting busy. But like,
so it's your fault.
It definitely is my fault. Yeah, and so I think I need to like really set some time aside. So I think what I'm gonna do is because I have this upcoming.
You should do it after your event.
Yeah, I have this upcoming event, but I can still do like day by day. Like it's not even like I should just set like a lot of time. I should just make time, and it could just be like one part of it here and then one part of it there. But it's gonna definitely be like more of like a real good starter for people. But I know people have been asking me about it, and I am planned to do one. You know, they want me to be a part of it, and I do want to be a part of it too. I think it's a great idea. And so
it's probably because on the page yours is at the bottom as coming soon, and it's been there for like probably 2 months at this point.
The people really
like what content what is soon?
Yeah, soon is whenever I do it, and it really like as soon as I do it, it will be up. Like they have a really good system. It won't take long to be like put up. So it's really on me, man. So you guys just keep pressuring me until it happens. So if you have an ArtStation Learning account, you'll get it for free, or you'll just be added to your subscription. And for those of you who don't, you should get one anyway because there's a lot of great content already there. I highly recommend it. They don't pay me to say that. I just agree with this premise of education, just more affordable, a lot more education available.
Okay.
Into that.
Similar line of questioning. Paul Pulp asks, "Hey AJ, I've purchased your lifetime membership, and I feel like there hasn't been much new tutorials / benefit for a while. Any plans on developing content for your lifetime club members?"
Yeah, so the lifetime just means you always will have access to every tutorial that I ever done. Like that's exclusive to like stuff like the ArtStation stuff because they are purchasing it for their own purposes. But whenever I do my own tutorials, whatever, you will always have access to this. And any ones that I've done in the past, like I said, which is over like 300 hours of content, I believe. It's a lot of content. So really what it just means is that you'll have access to whatever already exists. And if, and when, usually it's not an if, when I begin to do more tutorials, because I always will, because I learn new things. In fact, I think it's time for me to kind of get back on it because I do have a lot more ideas and concepts that I can teach, you know, because usually I'll like do like a whole month or two and just unload a crap load of information. And then I just will stop for another several months. But I think we've passed the several months moment already. It's like now we're getting into a year or so of me not posting new tutorials. So I think that's right. I think that's a good kind of like, hey man, could you do more, please? Yeah, absolutely. Because there's more to talk about. Like there's more. Like I could talk about more of like better photo bashing techniques. I've learned quite a lot with the latest works that I've done. I have more painting techniques to help you finish and refine images a little bit better. I have better speed painting techniques now, especially after going to the Japan trip, right? I use different tools. I can talk about those tools and like the advantages and the disadvantages, like the mobile versions of certain painting apps. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff that I can teach. And there's some other stuff like, I've been talking to some people and I've been convinced to teach game development. Like I can teach you how to make your own game, like an Unreal Engine, like a really powerful engine, really easily. Like I could tell you all about that. I could teach all that stuff. So there's like lots of stuff for sure that I can teach. There's not an absence of things. But again, it just goes back to this premise of just like, I just have not gotten around to it. But again, I would encourage you to just keep pushing me. Hey man, do more, bro.
All right. Casper Crow asks, are there any exercises to achieve or be better at brush economy?
Yeah, there's this one that I used to do where essentially what you do is you just count how many strokes you're doing and you just try to not go over it. So like you try to do like 100 strokes, try not to go over 100. If you want to do like even faster ones, like don't do more than 25. Try to see how much you can get done in one line. These types of fun exercises I would encourage. But ultimately, what you should be practicing too is just like not fixing too much or too often. Like try to make a brushstroke and just be happy with it. And this will be very challenging. You will do something like undo a lot. Like you'll make the stroke and then undo, make the stroke and then undo, make the stroke and then undo. But that's ultimately the way to get better at that. And then the more you do it, the more you get better at it. That's another tutorial. See?
Okay.
There's idea. Okay.
Okay. Ren JPEG asks, how does one endure being a mediocre artist knowing that I'll suck for a while until years of practice?
Yeah, that's a great question. I usually encourage people just to be patient, right? And very resilient. Because if you are constantly thinking about what you're just saying, it can discourage you in the wrong way. And so I encourage people to have a mindset that is more endearing, more like forward thinking. So going back to this idea of like, if you're constantly like the thing that's always on your mind is how bad you are, then it's going to be really devastating and depressing. But if you focus on stuff like, well, I'm not that great now, but I'm going to focus on one thing at a time. I'm going to focus on my anatomy. I'm going to focus on my perspective. And then try to focus on going to an event so you can get eviscerated by a professional at some level, right? And then just make that your next goal. Like, I'm going to go to this event and see if I can get some insight from this person. And then you're going to say, okay, now there's a next event to go to, or there's a next workshop. You just always look forward. And the next thing you know, you're just good. Like, it wasn't like I just knew when I was like, all right, this is the day now that I'm finally good. And I just knew, like, I had foreseen it. It was more like this. Like, I was working at Sony and I was doing this concept for work, and I just was like looking at it and I was like, oh shoot, like I think I'm a good artist now. It literally was like a surprise. I was just like, oh, what the, like I think I'm totally capable of doing good artwork now, like consistently. I feel pretty confident. But it wasn't like I knew like, okay, now when I work at Sony, I will know for sure that I'm a professional. What the Sony job did for me was just made me realize that people were taking my artwork seriously, but I still didn't feel like I belonged. But then, like I said, like after a while, I just started to like look at my own artwork and just be like, no, I'm definitely a good artist now. I deserve it. And then from there on, I just felt way more confident and just did more artwork. That's when you started seeing the person that I became today, which is someone who shares a lot of artwork often. I used to share often even before, but like I just like double timed it. I was doing like the once a week thing, but then I was going like twice or three times or even every day. So that's what I'm getting at. It's not like it's not so obvious. But I had a fundamental philosophy that kept me going, which was just like, oh yeah, I got to keep drawing. I just got to keep drawing to get good. And if I don't, I'm not going to get good. It was really simple. It was a very principled idea.
Okay, wrong. David Hernandez comes back
Hey,
asking,
cool.
should I post on my social media my apprentice digital drawings and paintings, or only the best work?
Yeah, like I said earlier, you should post as much as you can, as often as you can, um, and just you'll start to build a a reputation for just, or you'll start to build a sense of like I gotta do it, I gotta post more often when you do this, and when you post more often, you'll feel. Sorry, I'm like trying something right now, and my mind's on that. Let me just stop for a second. If you post more often, like I said earlier, you're going to teach yourself how to post more often, and you're also going to teach yourself how to get better, right? Because you're going to be drawing more, because you're always going to want to replace that last artwork you did. For me, whenever that was happening, I was always wanting to replace like the last painting that I posted because I didn't like it for whatever reason, or I just felt like I could do better. And then I'll do that, and then I'll post it, and then that painting would now become the new painting that I needed to replace. If that makes sense. And then, like I said, eventually that just went away. I just became good, and I felt good about everything I paint now. You know, I like almost all the things I draw and paint. Whether the other people do, that's different. Like I don't have any control over that, but I pay attention. You know, I look at what people react to, but ultimately I don't really have control. But I just post often, and I like everything that I post usually. It's very rare that I don't.
If you guys go to Pinterest / Robotpencil, you'll see some of his archived work is in a pin. So you can see that even back in the day, he had a blog and he would post all his work there. And you can see how the quality has gotten better and better over time. And that's kind of what he's telling you guys you should do.
Tight.
All right. Micah asks, I have been trying digital art for about a year now, but I have a lot of trouble being consistent in my work. Do you have any advice for being consistent in subject matter or styles?
Yeah, you should just be more focused. Just pick a thing that you want to draw a lot of and just keep drawing it. If you are jumping around trying to get good at all sorts of different things, it doesn't help you. You're just constantly just jumping around. You just need to pick a thing and just stay focused on that, and then eventually you'll be consistent. Like if you want to draw like bicycle locks, just keep drawing bicycle locks, and then you'll get really good at it. I don't know why I picked bicycle locks, but you know we don't have enough bicycle lock artists in this industry, so maybe you're the one. That, by the way, that's a joke. Don't do bicycle locks. I don't think there's a market for that. Like there's like product designers who would do that. And if you want to be a product designer, then yeah. But in terms of concept art, I don't think that's I don't think that's a job.
Okay. Zion asks, who would you describe as your inspiration?
There's so many. Like it's literally like a lot of artists, thousands. But if I had to pick, like you know, like to answer that question, like you know, full heartedly, like based off of what was just asked of me, you know, it would probably be Linedecker and someone like Ryan Meinerding from Marvel. But like I like said what I said in the beginning because it's disingenuous to just assume that there's only one artist. Like no, it's clearly many. It's thousands that really defines my artwork. And to say anything else would be a lie. But to answer, like I said, to answer that question just straight on, that's the answer. But it won't necessarily. It's not the answer you really want. The answer you should really be asking, or the question you should be really asking, is like, how do I basically take all of my favorite influences, take all my favorite artists and all that stuff, and apply that knowledge into my artwork. And the best way to answer that question is to constantly observe and understand how they do paintings, and focus on what you like, not necessarily what you don't like. If you focus on what you don't like, you might be missing out on what you like. A good example of this is a story that Stephen King once told, he was talking about how he reads tons of books and he writes a lot. And someone was asking him about like how he gets inspiration and stuff. And that's what he said. He's like, I just read a lot and I write a lot. And he says, like, how many of you guys read 50 Shades of Grey? And then like the audience was laughing, and he was kind of like making a point. He's like, yeah, exactly. Like I did. I read 50 Shades of Grey. And yeah, I don't think it's good. Like there's a lot of parts of it that I really was like thinking it was really bad writing. But there's some parts that are super good. And I got really inspired by those parts. And those parts made me like that one part of this whole book inspired me to write this book. And he named like a book. And that book I think ended up becoming a Netflix movie too. But he was making a point like, yeah, like you could find influences wherever and however, right? And if you're just focused on why you don't like stuff, you might not be focused on why you like stuff. And that's how I navigate like all my influences. I don't look at just what makes them good. I only look at that, and then I try to find ways to put that in my artwork. And that's why I say thousands, because there's thousands of artists that are in my mind when I put down like a stroke. It's just happened at like a light speed.
It's like producing your medium, consuming your medium.
Yeah.
Kind of another question that came up that lines up with that.
I'm gonna drink some water.
Zephyr asks, how do you fill your visual library with stuff that you draw, for example? It doesn't exist in real life to study from. I think he's saying, how do you interpret?
Yeah, it's just a combination of all those artists. There's artists that I can think of right now that highly influence like the way that I'm painting the skin, the horns on this creature, the eyes on his face, right? The patterns of his textures, the anatomy. Like there is an artist for each of these factors that's in my mind that I can think of, right? I just put them together to create something that's incredibly unique. It's all subconscious. So when you build a visual library, don't think of visual libraries as like, now I have this monster in my mind. Right? Like, no, it's more like you are collecting all sorts of Lego pieces, right? And then it's up to you how you put those Lego pieces together, right? And so, for instance, if your visual library is like a very basic Lego like setup, you only have like the 2 by 2, right? Like the block, basically just a simple block, right? And you're trying to create like a whole spaceship just from that, then your ship's going to be very blocky, right? There's not going to be enough there to really make something interesting, But then let's say you get like a flat, like a 2 by 8 or something, right? Lego block thingy, right? So now you got like this flatter piece, so you can make the wings easier, right? So you can have actually more dimension that you can skew with instead of like having just a bunch of blocks, right? But then let's say you get that curved piece, that's like this. If you know Legos, you know what piece I'm talking about, right? And so on and so forth. And you just keep adding Lego pieces. You get the hinges, you get the wheels, you get the tubes, you get the wiring. You start adding all of these different components. And then you also, in the meanwhile, you've also constructed a lot of Legos, like whether you've constructed it from memory or you constructed it by following instructions, right? You were just following what the guy told you. But you're building this kind of, this understanding of like Lego mechanics, and that grows and grows, and then you will be able to build some really cool Legos. And so if you apply that same kind of metaphor to getting a visual library, like when you learn how to draw a car, then you now have that in your visual library. So if, let's say, you're designing a robot and you want to kind of have him have like some rim-like features, but like hide it, like not make it so obvious, you can do that now. You know what I mean? But that's ultimately kind of like the way you should think about it. Like if you think about it any other way, it might be distracting. It might not be reliable if you think it's some sort of magic trick. But if you think of it as like some sort of practical assessment, then you'll improve more practically.
Okay. Terza asks how to make yourself.
Before you get into this, we got a lightning round now.
Cool.
All right, so let's lightning round like the next few
We
questions.
have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7
Yeah, let's see
right
how.
now. Do you want to cut it off now?
Yeah, let's see how many we can get.
Okay. Hold on. No more questions. Sorry, folks. All right. Terza asks, how to make yourself finish artworks when you're at a student level and want to start again all the time. Oh, I know this exact. That's exactly what I went through.
Yeah.
Mainly because I see my art sucks, but don't yet have the technical skill to solve the problem.
Yeah, so you just got to solve the problem, right? You just got to like do it, and it's going to be wrong, but you got to do it because you got to finish the lap to know what time to beat, right? So if you never finish the lap, you never really know what time to beat. So if you really try, like you render as best as you possibly can, you put all the details in, you don't start over, you just do what you can to make the image look as finished as you possibly can. Just pay attention to how you were feeling, pay attention to why it was slowing you down, why it was a struggle, and then try to not to make those same mistakes in the next one. And then you also will probably have some insight on what you should be practicing, right? You're like, yeah, I spent like 5 hours just rendering this one material. You know, maybe I need to like be better at rendering materials. You know what I mean? And so you'll just have that foresight now because you or that hindsight because you actually did it. But if you don't, like if you stop before even when it starts to get challenging, you don't know why it's challenging. You just know it is. It hurts to try to go any further, and you just stop too before you could actually learn anything about yourself. So really, you just got to do it. And yes, your portfolio is never going to just be perfect out of the gate, especially if you're just starting out. But at least you can take a look at it and get some insight about why you're sucking at the moment and then what you can do to improve it. It's like the scientific method, right? Like you gotta have like results to look at and scrutinize. And if you don't have any results, how are you going to be able to scrutinize that? You might be wrong, right? Like scientists will be wrong with their experiments all the time. Like they'll have a hypothesis and then they'll experiment and then they're just entirely wrong. But they don't do this. They don't like do the test and then halfway through the test, like just like, you know what, let's try the test again. And then, you know what, like no, they follow through until the test is entirely completed at some level. And then they look at it. Then they start over. But they actually genuinely experiment. At least the good ones do, right?
Yep. And to briefly add on to that, an addendum, I'll say that I had that exact same problem a while back. And when I first started taking AJ's mentorship this past year, the advice he gave on finishing the lap really helped when you really stick true to that. And so I learned how to break that habit and start finishing works and work on things longer. Because you have to make some bad paintings before you make good ones anyway. So you might as well finish what you started.
Yeah.
That's kind of one of the principles that I learned.
Yeah.
Personally.
To finish that thought, and then we'll move on. Remember, there was this concept of like polishing a turd. People are afraid of polishing turds.
Mm-hmm.
And I made it clear in a podcast with Adam a while ago, like that there's different levels of advice. So telling somebody who's like a student to not polish turds seems like good advice, but the reality is no, they should, because they need to like finish them laps. They need to like know where their shortcomings are at, right? And the only way you really find that out is by finishing something and looking at it objectively, right? So you got to have to polish that turd. But if you're like more of an intermediate or even like mildly advanced artist, the polishing the turd is more like if you have like a bad concept. It's not about like whether you're good at painting. You can probably do good painting, but you have a bad concept. So now you're just like polishing a bad idea. That advice makes sense in that context, right? Of like polishing a turd. Like your idea isn't good. Like you shouldn't have done it in the first place, right? Versus like polishing, like or like trying to get good at painting. Like you do need to finish. You need to polish them turds, so you can look at it and observe and understand what you can do differently.
Yeah, you got to know it's a turd.
Polish them turds, 2020.
And Matt asks, how do you deal with bad drawing days? I get days when nothing I do looks any good, and I seem to forget to even do basic rendering.
Yeah, that's just a matter of inconsistent ability. That just means you just don't practice enough. It's supposed to happen, especially if you're just starting out. You're supposed to just not be consistently good at doing stuff, right? That's what training's supposed to do. Like when I first started working out, like I wasn't consistently able to lift like heavier weights. But as I get stronger, like for instance, like right now, like the most I could lift in a deadlift is pretty good. It's like 365. But it doesn't mean that like if I go tomorrow I can lift 365 again. Like I might not be able to. You know, it might be too heavy, or maybe my body still needs more rest. You know, maybe I didn't get enough nutrients throughout the week to really supply my muscles and get enough rest. There's a multitude of reasons why I probably can't do it again, like tomorrow or even like a week from now, right? But can I lift 300 pounds? Yes, for sure. You know what I mean? Because all of the training leading up to 365 basically says that I should be able to just lift 300 pounds, you know, easily. Where 300 pounds used to be my max, where I could barely lift it, you know, and it was inconsistent whether I could do it or not. But you just keep moving that baseline, and the only way to do that is to keep moving that baseline, right? Like just keep like doing stuff that moves you into a specific direction, right? But if you don't do these types of things, yeah, it feels like, oh, I should just always be able to draw good. That's just not realistic. That doesn't make any sense. Anyways, if you really thought about what you just, or like that kind of philosophy, if you really thought about like what you're thinking, like why would I just be constantly good? Like I just need to build a better baseline. I need to have a better place of like foundation of my skill, and just think about that, moving that rather than, oh man, today I didn't draw good, right? And so if you don't feel like you draw good, then maybe you don't have a strong foundation in that thing. Like I never feel like I can't draw like what I'm drawing right now. You know what I mean? I always feel like I could do it. But can I draw like something that like some of my best paintings I've done in the past? There's some paintings that like I really did a good job. And those will be really hard for me to replicate again, because that's like my max art skill, you know? But like my baseline art skill, yeah, I could draw like this type of stuff all day. Like I could like do a 24-hour stream and just constantly be drawing weird shit like this, and it would be good consistently. You know, this would be like the 300 pounds example that I was talking about. All right, let's take one more question, and then I definitely gotta go. Take one more. Try to find the one that seems like it has a good answer potentially. Get in and on.
Okay, I'm gonna go with Paul Pulp. Asked, how do you decide on what you draw between your interests, what's marketable, or practice?
Okay, so I draw for myself now, but when I first started, I drew what was gonna get me a job. Because back then I didn't have a job, I didn't have that legacy as a concept artist, so I just drew a lot for what I thought other people would want from me, and then I started doing more personal work and also like things that I thought people would want to see from me. And now I just do almost entirely personal work, and people hire me based off of either my legacy, or they hire me because they see my new personal work and it's very fascinating to them and they want that in their project, whatever that may be. So I've reached kind of a peak in my career of what that means. But the kind of stuff that's marketable is, I have kind of answered that before. Like you just look at what other companies are looking for and what they would want to use, you know, and need. And then just have that in your portfolio. And doing like a lot of fan art is really good, because fan art is a great way to kind of like practice concept art. The kind of fan art that I'm thinking about, like fan art as in like, you know, taking an idea, a concept that you think is cool, and then just reinventing it. And I think it's really good strategy because it helps people, you know, get a glimpse of your ability to redesign a character. And also it's just like fun. Like people can like if you draw Sonic and do your own design, like people, I know who Sonic is, you know, and they'll that nostalgia kick, as well as like how you may have creatively changed it, is just a good way to like kind of build an audience around that. But I usually don't encourage doing nothing but fan art unless that's what you want to do, right? Like if you want to build a career around that's what you do, like you just draw fan art, then do it, and you can totally make a living doing that. But if you are just trying to get some exposure and you just want some people to give you some like looky loos, then you could totally do that. But again, I mentioned before, the ultimate solution to building that audience is just posting often, because even if you post like a really viral hit, like I posted like these Mario painting portraits a long time ago and literally got like millions of views, but I didn't get millions of followers. You know what I mean? I might have got a lot, like 1,000, a few thousand here and there, but I didn't get millions. The BuzzFeed videos, like I think many of them as collectively have gotten like 1 or 2 million views, but it's not like I got millions of followers. I got like hundreds, maybe thousands from those videos, you know, but never millions. That's kind of the ultimate point. Like it's not like a direct correlation, but my baseline is that I do post often, so I still get like dozens, like hundreds and hundreds of new followers every week or so, regardless of the BuzzFeed video or the posting of these fan arts. But that's like the kind of stuff that markets you. It just gets people to understand that you do exist and that you have some sort of value that they would like to be a part of. But anyway, all right. Hope you guys enjoyed the painting. Decided to paint some sort of like demon-esque character because I did a poll on my Instagram, and that's what people wanted. I think the next thing to do is like a demon robot and then a sexy lady, and then we'll see what I do after that. But yeah, polish that turd 2020. All right, guys, I'm gonna roll out of here. If you want to see this painting, you can go follow me on ArtStation or go to my ArtStation. It'll be there pretty soon, or on Instagram. If you're on your phone, you don't really want to look on ArtStation for the high res. And then what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, don't forget to follow me or subscribe to all of my social medias if you ever want to know what's going on. We are pretty consistent so far with the Monday streams, so I'm happy about that. So we're going to try to do streams. I'm already planning on I have an idea, Mike. I'm going to pass it to you, but like we'll talk more about it later. But
Okay.
We already have like the Feedback Friday concept, but I also was thinking like Study Sunday. I thought that would be cool, like where it's just me studying and hanging out, and it could be like a long form stream. It's more informal. It could be like 2-3 hours session where I'm just working and people are there and hanging out. We're all just hanging out, just drawing together, rather than you know what I mean? Like rather than me just talking the whole time. Maybe it won't be like 2 hours. Maybe it'll still be like an hour. But it will just still be cool. Just kind of chill. And we're all working together. We're all doing something. Maybe I can give some sort of topic that we can all study. But when that happens, I'll let you know. With that being said, peace out, friends. Thanks for hanging out on the stream. I appreciate y'all. And have a great day.
See you guys.